All right. Welcome to the May 9th edition of Uncle Bobby's Country Corner, where real men don't play. The intro song is so fitting tonight, Ball of Confusion by the Temptations. And while I'm on the subject of the Temptations, I'd like to send well wishes and a quick recovery to the brother who led that song, the great Dennis Edwards. Also, tonight, we're going to deal with moving forward. Last week we looked back and moved forward, and now we're going to put it right in the pocket and break down the theme, saving our cities, one block at a time. Tonight, we're dealing with the Windy City, Chicago, Illinois. There's been a lot of sad singing and flower bringing in the city of Chicago for the last 30 years, and we're at a point now where we have to look at the models of possibility and best practices. And when I decided to come up with this theme, which will be a recurring theme over the next few weeks, I wanted to reach out to somebody who has their finger on the pulse of the city of Chicago. So without any further ado, I'd like to welcome to the show this evening my brother from another mother. Greet with me Phillip Lowery from the city of Chicago. Phillip, welcome to Uncle Bobby's Country Corner.
What's up, Bobby?
Man, look, I have to share this little sidebar with the audience this evening in terms of the fact that I've known you for over 20 years without physically seeing you. And I remember about 10 years ago, when it was like, how long has Katrina been? It's been over 10 years, hasn't it?
Yeah.
And I was in Chicago with the president of the Black Contractors Association at the time, and I had told you I was coming into the city, and you had a couple of brothers come by and pick me up and take me on a tour. I hadn't been in Chicago in many years other than at the airport, and the parts of town that I went in and moved freely about is an example of the reach and the vast network of people that you have influenced in the city of Chicago since Hush was a puppy. So my first question to you tonight is, how did you become a go-to guy in the city of Chicago?
Well, I'm really not a lot of different from a lot of the rest of the young black men in the city. I just happened to get involved with Mayor Washington in the early 80s.
That's Harold Washington, right?
Yeah, Harold Washington,
Mm-hmm.
right? When he first got elected in 83, I worked with Vote Community, did all the registration and setting up the precinct organization for the mayor. So I met him and a lot of other influential people, and it kind of turned me into a different direction, let's say that way. And I ended up going back to school, got my little degree and everything,
A little degree? What's a little degree look like?
A BSEE. Bachelor of Science, Electronic Engineering.
That's far from a little degree, brother.
Well, I always have been in the math, so it wasn't really,
Okay, well, I'm just telling you, man, that gives me a headache just the thought of electrical engineering, man. That's quite an accomplishment, especially when you consider the different paths that you traveled in the totality of your life. So with that as a backdrop, that was a brother by the name of Lou Palmer. And for people here in the city of Los Angeles in particular, Lou Palmer was the H.H. Brookins. H.H. Brookins was the leader of the AME Church for many, many years, and he was a kingmaker. He helped elect the first black mayor of Los Angeles, who was Tom Bradley. And from my understanding, Lou Palmer was that kind of guy in the city of Chicago. Is that correct?
Yeah. Yes, he was. He ran an organization called Seabuck, and he had a radio show called Lou's Notebook. And he was the first one, really, him and the mayor, Mayor Washington, that started preaching economic revival, in terms of us participating in the city, state, federal contracts and all that type of stuff. Unfortunately, the mayor and Lou died before their time, and they were replaced with, let's say, the establishment leaders who dropped the ball and went all on basically just them making whatever money they could make and forget everybody else.
Well, when you put it that way, if we were to create a graph, would you say that there's been a precipitous decline in the opportunities for the black citizens of Chicago in the aftermath of Lou Palmer and Harold Washington passing away?
Oh, definitely. Definitely. It's been, it started actually, definitely. It started really accelerating because they attached that to the new drug laws when they started the drug forfeiture laws and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And they attached all that stuff together, and they just sucked all the money out the community, starting in like the 88, 89, and going up to this day.
So, as we look at 2017, and, the one thing that we all see constantly about Chicago is the murder rate and the concentration of poverty, to the extent where a friend of mine who is a friend of yours also, Wendell Stimley from the National Association of Minority Contractors, coined the phrase, poverty is a serial killer. And that's been the whole perception of Chicago, is that it's nothing going on but stealing and killing. Why, in your estimation, has there been so much indifference to the plight of black people who live in Chicago?
Because those are who are in a position to do something about it, the politicians, the preachers, and all those supposedly people that are fighting for the community and looking out for our better interests, self-motivated, So they're not solving the problem. And a lot of times they participating in it, because when issues come up, they boil over, like the thing with the shooting of the young boy when they had held back the video of his shooting.
Yes. Right.
Mm-hmm. The same politicians that should have been pushing to say, this is an issue that we need to address, were down there in City Hall voting saying, we need to hold this back.
Mm-hmm.
As a result, we end up getting rid of the state's attorney, Alvarez, but it was no follow-through on that.
Mm-hmm.
None of the other things, because there's a lot of stuff going on with the violence piece. It's not all about gangs. It's not all about lack of education. There's no one thing that you can stop and stop the violence. You understand what I'm saying? You have to approach it from all kind of different directions, all kind of different people doing it. Because this stuff been going on. We're going into our second generation of this stuff now.
Well, that's a great segue into the formation of a ad hoc committee that has been appropriately named the Coalition for Equitable Contracting in Chicago. Can you speak to why you are one of the principals in the formation of the Coalition for Equitable Contracting in Chicago?
Well, basically what we are doing is we are concentrating on the construction industry and the contracts that come around with the construction industry. Because even though we can't stop everything at once, we can provide leadership in terms of making sure that young black entrepreneurs are able to get those contracts. Therefore, we can hire our own people. It won't be like you get a laborer job on a construction site, let's say, in a certain community, right?
Mm-hmm.
Let's say they hire 10 people. When that contract is up, whether it be 3 months or 6 months or a year, it's not like that contractor takes those laborers with them to the next job.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, it's always temporary employment.
Mm-hmm.
And even though it's a good pay wage and that type of thing, you don't get the same social benefit that we should get in our community from the work being performed, because the contractors take all the profits and out the community. And they don't support any, non-for-profit type things in the community, supporting education, supporting mentorship programs, all the associate things that go with it.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? It's like Aldi's, let's say. They build Aldi's in our community, and they hire, 10 to 15 people, but they take all the profits not only out the community, but all the way out the country to Germany to the Albright brothers.
Mm-hmm.
And if you do that consistently over time, even though we're buying things, we're not getting the secondary
economic push from that.
Right. We're not getting right. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And you know, you multiply that by 30 years, 35 years, and this is what you get.
Now, you've had a varied career from a businessman perspective. You had a construction company yourself at one time, didn't you?
Yes, I did.
And what was your, I guess, specialty within the construction genre?
Basically, we did gut outs, complete gut outs and restorations of buildings. That's what we initially did. Then some of the other guys that was working with my company ended up doing new construction. But I ended up getting a contract with the federal government to provide food service for one of the governmental buildings.
Mm-hmm.
Right, but some of the guys that work with me have companies right now today.
So let me ask you this question. How have you been able to, number one, maintain your connection to the urban community, for lack of a better expression, the brothers and sisters right there on the corner, and still be able to elevate your game to the point where you can interface with the shakers and movers in the city of Chicago?
That's easy, brother. Just like when y'all took me around out there to L.A., blood in, blood out.
Well, I remember when I went to Chicago and I was able to move around the city because of your reputation on both sides of the street. I had never seen anything like that, particularly in a city with the reputation that Chicago has. So how does that afford you the leverage to be able to be a part of this coalition and not be perceived as someone who is trying to play games and to just be someone that's promoting themselves, as opposed to really being a part of a group of people that want to affect massive change through massive action in the city of Chicago?
Right. Well, you know, I was taught when we were young that, let's put it this way, the older guys that were within our organization, they made sure we went to school, and, you know, they put limits on some of the things we did. So as we got older, we started doing those same type of things. You know, so as a result, like half of these kids around here right now today, I know their mama, their grandparents, you know what I mean? They know us. We make sure the people don't bother. You know, we try to support them, you know, to send them the stuff that they're not usually able to go to, baseball games, ice volleys, all kinds of little stuff like that. You know, and that's all we can do. You know, we try to stay one at a time, one at a time.
Well, you know, this undertaking, the Coalition for Equitable Contracting in Chicago, it has a focal point, a laser-like focal point, as we look at public works primarily at this point, and in particular, a $3.5 billion bond initiative that has already been passed. So the money is already available for refurbishment and some additions to the O'Hare and Midway airports.
O'Hare Airport, Midway Airport, but they also have the over and underpass program that they had set up with Metro, which is like a railroad, CTA, RTA, you know, that type of thing. You know, where they're setting up where they don't have, like, the railroad tracks where you drive over them, where they set up an overpass or underpass. That money's been passed already. Then they have the CTA extension, which runs from, like, 95th Street to 133rd Street, I believe, out there, Ardell Gardens. It's always federal programs going here. You know, federal government, you know, between the city and the state and the feds, they pass out, I can't even tell you how many billions of dollars here every year. And we definitely don't get what you would call an equitable part of that. You know, because it's always, you know, diverted, or they always find ways for us not to be able to participate in it fully, because they have people that's of our own color, you know, that's helping them divert money from our community. So self-interest.
So why is this coalition, first of all, feasible, And what gives you confidence in the belief that there will be some radical changes in the way these federal contracts are let and the level of participation by people from the black community?
Well, we realized by listening to like you mentioned, Brother Wendell earlier from AMAC, listening to the brother, understanding how the airports and stuff worked. Once I heard about what he was doing, I was like, we need to start a chapter of that here, because what that puts us in position is that legally we have some things coming to us, and they can't go around that, so it's up to us to say, okay, we're going to set this thing up the way this brother's doing things and push for it, because, they never give us nothing. We always had a fight,
Now, just for clarification, Phillip is talking about Wendell Stimley, the president of the National Association of Minority Contractors, which is headquartered in Washington, D.C., and we're in the steps now of formulating a Chicago chapter of the National Association of Minority Contractors. You've identified some young brothers who are qualified, bonded, insured, and more importantly, sensitive to the plight of being able to secure some of these contracts and then being able to pour some of those opportunities back into the hands of people from the community. What's your thoughts on the prospects of that happening, and what difference will it make in mitigating some of the violence and poverty in the city of Chicago?
Well, it's going to happen, and we've had commitments from some of the young brothers that we're talking about, that they're going to put income in the programs to address nonviolence specifically. And just the fact that these brothers come from the areas where we'll be working and live, in the city of Chicago, is going to help stabilize the economic condition in our community. We have to start somewhere, and even though we're starting with construction, it's a lot of associated things that go along with construction, supplies, all that stuff like that. You know what I mean? You know better than I do, because we've discussed this stuff before. So, we starting there, and, we're going to finish where we finish, but we're going to try, that's for sure. So
now, my next question to you is, one of the biggest challenges of an undertaking like this is being able to get the workforce ready. What gives you confidence that we're going to be able to take some people that have not really ever had an opportunity to work in the construction industry? Do you feel confident that we're going to be able to administer a program that includes job readiness, that'll take some cats who have, a checkered past, to say the least, and be able to convince them to be able to ready themselves to go to work every day at a very good wage, and then keep them from reverting back to some of the behaviors and attitudes that kept them from being employable in the past?
Right. Well, as you know, I work with Jim Brown with the American program, so I've not only went through the program myself, I've taught the program, and I've taught a lot of guys myself personally, young men and young women, and a lot of them are doing well. You know what I'm saying? So, those are the things that we address. A lot of the problems with these young people, more so, is that they don't have communication skills, and more so than anything else, they haven't had opportunity. Because, the young guys, they want to take care of their children, too. They don't want to be out there throwing bricks at the penitentiary. Nobody want to do that. Who want to live like that? You know what I mean? So given an opportunity to do something else, they will do that. So what we try to do is prepare them to do that.
Now,
you understand?
Sure. Now, one of the people that you introduced me to shared something very sobering with me a couple of months ago as we began the planning phase of creating this new coalition for equitable contracting. And he talked about the tribal nature of Chicago. Could you, in a few words, speak to how that has in many ways kept the black community out of opportunities, the fact that there's so many factions competing for so few resources?
Well, what it turned into before, when everything is said and done, is those who have money and those who don't. You know, it's not so much a race-based thing as it is an economic-based thing.
Mm-hmm.
You understand what I'm saying? You know, they don't care if you purple, striped, or whatever. They holding on to what they got, and they not interested in making sure anybody else comes. It's not like King and all those other people did where they want to pull somebody up behind them. It's like they pull the ladder up behind them and throw oil on everybody else to come up. You know what I'm saying? You know, that's the best way I could describe it, Bobby.
Well,
you know?
As we have begun to formalize a strategy to deal with the obstacles that we are already aware of, one of the things that we've talked about is not only the political landscape, the social landscape. We've looked at the fact that there's a governor's race coming up. When is the governor's election, Phillip?
The primary is, I believe, next March. You know, it floats between February and March, but I believe it's next March. The general is November, next November, but the primary is about March, because they're running commercials for the governor's race right now for the primary. I just saw one the other day.
Oh, okay.
But, you know, that's, you know, the thing with Illinois is that we haven't been able to look for the state or city politicians to help with this, you know, because we talking about the same people that did the extended term and all this stuff with the criminal justice system and created all these hidden taxes with red light cameras and all this other, all these people, you know, the state and the city, they make money off of our community.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they like parasites on our community. You know, and it's just systemic. You know, so we have to get involved in the political arena to be able to protect whatever gains we make.
Okay.
And to create friends in power that will push our agenda. And we've been doing that over the years. We've got some aldermen, a few state reps. We even helped the U.S. Senator get elected.
Okay.
You know, the returns on that haven't been what they should be. But if we hadn't did those things, the things we're talking about doing now with NABAC, I believe it would be difficult for us to do. You know yourself, we've been talking to some elected officials in the city already.
Right.
Even though they haven't made it public yet. But when the time comes, they're going to do that.
Well, you know, it's funny you mentioned that because Wendell fired off a letter outlining the egregious and in some instances criminal malfeasance that has been allowed to expand, incubate, you know, and fester in the city of Chicago to the Secretary of Transportation. And subsequent to that, we have alerted people in the local community that that's no longer going to be the case. And I'm very confident that by the time we launch this initiative within the next 60 days with the Let's Go to Work symposium that will bring all of the players into the same room with one objective, and that is a redistribution of the tax pie. Because we're talking about dollars that we have a right by virtue of having put those monies into the coffers of the city of Chicago and the state of Illinois to demand a return on those investments. So I'm excited about the prospects of us being able to be winners in this game. And as a result, many people that now have ski masks and pistols in their hands will have an opportunity to put some construction implements in their hands and go out and exactly, yeah, and take care of their families in a way that's sustainable, you know. And That excites me, and I'm going to have you back on frequently as we begin this process, and we'll inform our listeners around the country and parts of the world of the outcome of what's really going on in Chicago that they need to know about. Because again, the focal point and the perception is that Chicago is a city that has fallen into such a state of disrepair as it relates to the black community that it has become hopeless. And because of people like you, I know that's not true.
Yeah, but don't let them fool you setting their agenda, because their agenda is not ours.
That's for sure, man.
Right.
Man, it's been a pleasure having you on the show, and I look forward to the next time you're here, because we're going to use this as a benchmark, where we started at and where we're going. It's all about affecting positive social and economic change, and Chicago is the first of many cities that we want to create a blueprint in Chicago that can be replicated across the country. So, Phillip.
That's good enough. Yeah, anytime, brother. You know that. I'm always available for you.
Well, what's your favorite saying, brother, as we close this conversation?
Oh, it's me and you, brother.
It's me and you, man. Ladies and gentlemen, that's Phillip Lowery, Chicago's finest. We'll be right back after a short break. For the uninitiated, that's the mighty, mighty OJs out of Cleveland, Ohio, and that's been a manifesto and a mantra of mine since I heard that song back in college many, many, many moons ago. You got to give the people what they want. And there's a gentleman on the phone with me right now who understands that and represents that song in so many very important ways. Welcome to Uncle Bobby's Country Corner, where real men don't play. Maruwa Ferrell. And if I didn't pronounce that right, straighten it out for me.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you for having me on. The way you pronounce my name is Maruwa.
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 Okay.
Right. Maruwa Ferrell.
Ferrell. Yes.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And your association with the United Improvement, is it the United Universal Improvement? Is that correct?
Yes, I'm a Garveyite. I'm the president of the division of Chicago's 401 Universal Negro Improvement Association.
That's what it is. That's what it is. Yeah. And
yes, sir.
As a Garveyite, when I first heard that news from our mutual friend in Chicago, I was like, how could that possibly still be relevant in 2017? And I want you to address, number one, why you chose to breathe life, not necessarily life, but your life, into the UNIA.
Oh wow, that's a good question. Well, first of all, let me just say, I was born in the UNIA. My mother and father were both Garveyites, both members of the Universal Negro Improvement Association. And as I grew older, I realized, during my own journey through, black consciousness and black power, I studied with the Moorish Americans for a while. I processed in the Nation of Islam for a while. I was on the streets and street organizations for a long while. And it just came back and continued to manifest itself that Marcus Garvey actually had to answer 100 years ago.
Mm.
So, when I looked at it and I did my research and I did my study, you're talking about a man that had, from a real modest estimate, over 12 million members, dues-paying members, not just members, but dues-paying members in the world. And as far as I know, there's nobody else who has done it like that.
Mm.
So, when you look at, you want to talk about black success, Garvey had the most successful movement ever.
Mm.
I don't know anyone else who did it. Not only was he successful, as far as numbers wise, the programs that he had with the Black Factory Report. I don't know if you know that when in the time of Marcus Garvey, black girls had to play with white dolls. And Marcus Garvey said that it should not be that our girls were actually being taught to play with white dolls and grow up and emulate, our oppressors. So Marcus Garvey and the UNIA was the first ones to produce black dolls. Also, it's been a real big resurgence of the red, black, and green flag. People carrying the red, black, and green. And the red, black, and green flag is, in fact, the UNIA's flag. It was given to us in 1920 when Marcus Garvey and the UNIA had their convention in Harlem. And that flag and that anthem was put into the Constitution. Before that flag, before we had the red, black, and green flag, the white folks, and it was a Jewish band, had a song out where they used to mock us. And they said everybody had a flag but a coon. And the Honorable Marcus Garvey said, well, they would not be able to continue to do that. And that's where we got the red, black, and green from. So, it's still relevant today because, in fact, the problems that was going on then, are still going on now. The Honorable Marcus Garvey asked, what was the black man, what was his army, his navy, his men, a big affair, and he said that he looked throughout the world and he couldn't find them. So he decided that he would help make them. So I think we still, as a black people, we need to continue to work on that and build that. It wasn't about religion. It wasn't about politics. It wasn't about whether you was from the North or the South. It wasn't about none of that. It was about the only thing that we got in common, the only thing that we cannot change, and that's our DNA. So it's race first. It's all about being black. It's race first. Yes,
the mantra, "Up you mighty race, you can accomplish what you will." What does that mean? 2017 in the city of Chicago.
Oh, wow. Well, in the city of Chicago, up you mighty race, what man has done, man can do. There's nothing that another man has done or another race has done that we cannot do ourselves. So, it's about us standing up, and in the city of Chicago, which I believe, and I've done some traveling, north, south, not too many times west of the Mississippi, but, north and south and east, in Chicago, though, we have a very, very segregated city, and I don't mind separation, but I do mind segregation. I don't mind us being together in the community because I don't want to live in no other community but the black community. But in Chicago, we have the businesses are controlled by others and foreigners. The school system, is deplorable. Our children are getting a subpar education. And speaking on education, what people were sending their children to their enemies to be educated, but, so it's really about us with some self-reliance and us doing for our own and doing for ourselves. Self-reliance is the key. We can do it and we need to do it. So he said, up you mighty race, because for the most part, the propaganda of our oppressors have us believing that we're not worth anything. That we can't accomplish anything. That the only thing that we're good for is to be athletes or entertainment or thugs or fodder for another people. So it was up you mighty race, letting us know that we are mighty. Matter of fact, God has never made a more perfect race than a black race. That's what God, we can accomplish what we will. If we unify, black unity will solve all the problems in the black community.
Okay, specifically, what are some of the things UNIA Chicago is doing to affect social and economic change?
Okay, all right. Now we're talking about, the proof is in the pudding. The last word of UNIA association means that those of us with a like mind and a like cause come together for that cause, and that's for the upliftment of the race. So with the UNIA here in Chicago, we're working with a whole lot of of the grassroots organizations, not only grassroots organizations, but some of our elder organizations that have been well established. I'm also a card-carrying member of Chicago Black United Community. And Chicago Black United Community is the first organization in Chicago or was real pivotal in Chicago in the election of the first black mayor, Harold Washington, with Lou Palmer and Brother Eddie Reed.
Exactly.
Right, and also Chicago Black United Community, CBUC, was also went around and was the first ones in our community that attacked those who was working and building things in our community, especially in the construction trade, and said that if we don't work, don't nobody work. So that's our elder, or that's the organization that we stand in lockstep with. But also we got new organizations, grassroots organizations. You got the one that I'm real active in with is New Era Chicago. And New Era Chicago was the second organization of the New Era Nation that came out of New Era Detroit. And they have a motto that they say, one community at a time. I mean, one man, one woman, one child, one community at a time until we are all one united race. And when they said that and they carrying the red, black, and green flag, I had to be there. So the activism is there, going throughout and combating some of the things in which we have in our communities that we need to work on, such as the violence, such as disrespect from foreign-owned businesses in our community, such as police killings. We spread a lot of black love. We're not going to be out here in the white media, being on the front page. But what we're doing is we're spreading black love in our community, walking throughout the community, knocking on doors, talking to our people, telling them that we are the change that we've been waiting for. So New Era Chicago is one of the organizations that the UNIA is working with. Also, the Black Panther Party Cubs with Chairman Fred Hampton Jr., who's out here and really combating police violence in our community. And Rise Up Chicago, who's out here doing some mentoring for young boys and having them garden and learning how to box. So the UNIA is alive and well, and we're doing a whole lot of things to actually, bring about that upliftment of our people. We got to do it. I look and I don't see it, so I decided, and we decided that we're gonna have to, help make it. So, that's some of the things that we're doing.
You mentioned New Era Detroit, and I would be remiss not to mention in a very positive and warm way Sister Carol Ham, who we know commonly because I reached out to her earlier today, and she said, in fact, she did know you. And that sister has been very progressive and consistent in her engagement with New Era Detroit. And so as we pivot back into the situation in Chicago, what are some of the economic necessities that have to be addressed in order for us to uplift the black community of Chicago?
Oh, wow, brother. I mean, when we start talking about economics, I'm going to have to say that, our community has bought a big dummy bag. We got real caught up into politics and things like that instead of working on the foundations, which is economics. The black community in Chicago has to develop a thriving business. When I say that we are the most segregated city, in America, when you go down any major street in Chicago, and they have plenty of businesses in our city, when you go down any major street in Chicago, you can hardly find a black-owned business. And not only that, right? So we're occupied by foreign forces in our economic sectors in Chicago. But not only that, if you go into one of these foreign-owned businesses, they don't even hire black people. So the money that is being spent, and I think somebody said that the black spending power of black Americans is enough to be ranked as like the 12th richest nation in the world. The money that is being spent in Chicago is going straight out. Matter of fact, we shut down with the People's Wake Up Mission. We actually shut down a liquor store a couple of weeks ago, and the foreign-owned businessman came out when he realized that we wasn't going to leave. And he said to me, that he feeds 12 families from that business. Now, the only black person that he had working in that business was the security guard, and the security guard didn't work during the day. He just came on in the evening. But he was telling me that he feeds 12 foreign families from the wealth that he's making out of our community. So, when we start looking at the economic debate, when I look at the streets and the work that's being done on our streets, or the work that's being done on our transportation, on the L's, the public transportation, I don't see hardly no black people out there. I'm talking about working in the streets in our community. Mm-hmm. At one point in time, through the help of Brother Eddie Reed, at least we used to be out there doing some work, or at least we used to be out there holding the sign and directing traffic. I don't even see that any longer. Mm-hmm. I'm talking about, man, people have taken us for granted, and we accept it. We don't say nothing. We just walk by like it's normal. It's normal for everybody else to eat, and we don't eat. It's normal. So, so it's all about economics.
So, since you are at the street level in a very consistent way, what is it that, in your estimation, has allowed the level of violence and suppression of economic development to flourish in the city, the third largest city in the United States?
It's been generational. And I have to say it, and a lot of times people don't want to accept it, but this is generational. It's been passed down. It's self-hate. Somebody else's water is always wetter than ours. So a lot of us don't even believe that we can do better. As far as the propaganda of our oppressor, we bought into it tenfold. For instance, when you start talking about the violence in the city of Chicago, I'm a guy who came into his teenage years in the 1980s. And I don't know, and I'm quite sure you remember, in the 1980s, with the invasion of crack cocaine and Uzis in our community, that was the most violent time that I know of. As a matter of fact, from 1986 to 1996, there were 1,000 murders a year in Chicago. 1,000 murders every year in Chicago. Mm-hmm. Now, I'm going to say this, right, and some people miss it when I say it. Last year, there was 700 and something murders. Mm-hmm. So when people start talking about how violent we are, I have to say that this is not the most violent that we've been. Matter of fact, we are not as violent as we once were. So I don't want to, use and put it out. Now, black on black, when we hurt each other, one black person hurting another black person is wrong no matter how you look at it. Mm-hmm. But do not paint us as being the savages so that you can justify coming in and massacring us. Mm-hmm. And that's what I take when I hear that Chicago is the most violent and all this violence. It's the media. It's the media saying that we're violent. And it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy. If you tell me I'm messed up long enough, then I start believing and I act messed up. And that's what's going on. Another thing, when it comes down to the violence, and you're talking about economics, well, I'm going to tell you, at one point in time, I knew how people was buying guns. They were buying guns through the drug trade.
Mm-hmm.
When I'm looking at the young youth in our community now, and they not selling drugs like that. They don't have the money to buy these new guns. I'm wondering where they get these guns from and all of this ammunition. And I'm gonna tell you, and Brother Fred Hampton Jr., we was talking the other day, I bet money on it. I know that the police was dropping them off in our community. Because these kids who ain't doing nothing but using drugs themselves and playing video games, they got guns that cost $800, $900 and big ass clips. Excuse my French.
Mm-hmm.
And big clips. And I know they not bad. I know they not bad. So who is arming our children, you know, to continue to kill each other, to shoot each other?
Well, let me ask you this question, and I apologize for interrupting you.
No. Go ahead, Mama.
How do we deal with the fact that if we're not supplying the guns and we clearly don't make them, how do we get the guns out of the hands of these young people, irregardless of how they get them?
Well, I mean, I don't necessarily. I mean, and this might be controversial. I don't think that we need to actually get the guns out of our hands because
Go ahead.
I don't know if you heard of Laquan McDowell, who was a young boy who got shot 16 times while 12 police stood
right.
I mean, I don't think that, but I think that we need to learn how to love each other and love ourselves. You know, if you really want to stop innocent killers, what we need to do is actually put a gun range in the community. If you put a gun range in the community where the brothers can actually go and learn how to shoot. Now think about it, brother. Think about it. You got young, everybody else from every other race, their children are raised up with guns. I'm talking about 6, 7 years old. They raised up learning how to, learning about a gun. They learn how to respect the gun. They learn how to clean it. They learn how to take care of it. They learn all these things. Every other race, their children are raised up with it. Now, with our race, our children usually don't get their first gun until they're 13 and 14 years old. And at that time, they don't know how to handle their emotions. They got this disrespect. They have been programmed through the school system, through the media, through all type of propaganda type of things out, and they get a gun at 14 and 15 years old. Now they get into it with the boy down the street or around the corner. Now all of a sudden, because they haven't learned how to control their emotions, they just got this something new they ain't never actually used or played with it, seen how it works. I mean, it's disaster waiting to happen. So I mean, if you ask me, it's the craziest thing I've never seen. Our community is the only one that we give away, $600, $700, $800 guns for a $50 Walmart gift card. It's crazy, So it comes down to us actually, working with the psyche of our people. I mean, black love will solve the problem of black hate. And what we have to do, when we out there in the streets and we walk through these streets and we talk to our people, all the ones that everybody's scared of, they avoid, and all these kids or young adults and young brothers, right? All that they looking for is to be acknowledged and somebody to just stop it and see them. A lot of us have bought into the same lies that our oppressor has been telling, that the young don't respect the old. That's a lie. That's a lie. All we have to do is come on out and quit being lazy and cowards and go on and talk to our people. Every time we talk to our people, man, I'm talking about the love. We give love and we get love back.
Well, this is a great place for us to kind of summarize this conversation and once again couch it in models of possibility and best practice. My final question to you is the UNIA amenable to collaborating with like-minded organizations and individuals at this stage of the game to affect social and economic change?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. The UNIA, and that's what I was speaking about, and I might have got a little sidetracked. That's what we about. Race first. If you for helping the race, then we willing to work with you. Now, we're not willing to work with you if you're not. We're not willing to work with you if we're not going to sugarcoat that. If you for helping the race, we're willing to work with you. So
okay.
The organization is for if you have another organization, it's not about who gets the claim and who's all out in the front. I really don't care, and we don't care. In the UNIA, we don't care who's out in the front. We don't care who shoots the ball. We don't care who hits the home run. We don't care. All we care about is the win. So we know that we got to unify with organizations, like-minded organizations, like-minded individuals, as long as they black, because we God black. As long as they black, that's what we own. So I don't care what organization you're about. If you for helping black people, then we gonna try to find a way to support you.
Well, I want to thank publicly Eddie Reed from CBUC for introducing me to you, and it's been refreshing to know that the legacy of the great late Marcus Garvey is alive and well in the city of Chicago, and that mantra is still something that should ring out from sea to shining sea, and that is, up you mighty race, you can accomplish what you will, because what men have done, men can do. So I want to thank you, brother, for coming on the show, and I'm going to hold you to the notion that when we make a couple of moves that we're getting ready to make over the next 60 days, that we can mark UNIA present and accounted for as we address the issues that must be dealt with in order to return the black community of Chicago to some semblance of a united community that thrives and prospers, as this country is in the middle of some very serious challenges about how to redistribute wealth and allow people to grow and to live in a certain measure of prosperity in a nation that has more money than Carter got liver pills.
Right. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And I give you my word, brother. Whatever I can do and whatever we can do to help, bring our people out of this horrible condition that we in, count me in. One thing that I know is that, don't know one person have all that, but black people standing up together, working together for the common cause and the benefit of the race. I don't believe that we can fail. So I know that, with your economic genius and the things that you're working on, we here with you. And on the the grassroots level, and we, as we talked about before, it's time for us to put some pressure, down on the people in our community. But we need, when we shut these stores and these businesses down, we need to be able to have somebody to move in and open up a business.
That's for sure.
We here, brother. And we willing and we ready, and
let's go to work. Let's just go to work. That's what we're going to do.
Work, my brother.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
All right, we're getting ready to wrap up this show, man. Thank you so much, brother, for coming on the show. And pronounce your name one more time before I mess it up again.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. My name is Maruwa.
Maruwa
Yes,
Ferrell.
Ferrell.
Maruwa Ferrell. I'm gonna get that, man, because people butcher my name so much. I don't want to do that to yours, man. And thank you for being a guest. And we'll be hearing from you again as we begin to chronicle and document our progress along this road of recovery, man. So thanks for coming by Uncle Bobby's Country Corner, where real men don't play.
Thank you, my brother. Race first.
All right, man. As we begin to get to the close of the show, I'm being very reflective in this moment because Chicago, when I first went to Chicago, and I think it was 1974, there was still remnants of a city that had a black merchant class, a level of sophistication, and an air about it. And over the years, I've met brothers from Chicago that I had a lot of respect for, and sisters. And then over the last few years, all the news has been dark. It's not just Chicago. The city that I'm in right now, Los Angeles, you see it all the time where we don't even speak to each other. We don't communicate effectively enough to deal with the fact that this city is exploding in economic development, as are many urban areas across the country, which makes our theme for tonight, saving our cities, more and more important. And what we're going to do is deal with this pragmatically. We can't get it all done in one day, in one night, 1 week, or 1 month. But each and every day that we wake up, we can do a little bit something to affect social and positive economic change in the midst of the people that we deal with. So my charge to everybody that listens to this show is to continue to follow the movement and then use your own imagination, your own passion to try to touch somebody's life and use your example to inspire others to do what they can. In the midst of chaos, there's tremendous opportunity. And right now in this country, Lord knows that there is more mess going on than ever, which creates opportunities that we can capitalize on if we desire to do that. And so on that note, I want to say thank you for letting me be myself once again, and tune in next week as we begin to move closer to the theme of changing and saving our cities one day, one person, one community at a time. So thanks for tuning in to Uncle Bobby's Country Corner, where real men don't play, and I hope you'll be back next week and tell somebody that we coming. We coming, Chicago. We're coming. Thank you. We're gone for this evening.